that men carry long sticks, and you see them in Egypt all the time. Men are carrying a very long stick, very much like in ancient Egypt when the high priest was carrying a very long stick. So they dance together as if they are fighting. You know that the street fight or street dance or something like this, as if they are fighting. They are not fighting, they are just performing. They play with the stick, which is very clever. Actually, we have another picture here. That's from one of the folklore shows. Now it's becoming like part of the folklore shows of Egypt. So this is on one of the famous stages in Cairo, and he's dressing up in galabeya, which is the traditional costume in Egypt. Maybe you've heard about something called the whirling dervish, or what we call tanura. So the whirling dervish actually is another religious dance. So it goes back to the very early time of Islam, when a group of people came and conquered Egypt from Morocco. They were Shia. They put influence of Shia belief on the Egyptian society. It didn't last for long, but some of their influence remained in Egypt, like this sort of dance. It's kind of meditation. The dancers, they wear that beautiful costume with like two long skirts on top of each other, and then they start going around. You can see the skirts. This is one of them, that's the top one, and that's the bottom one or the lower one. And they keep going around non-stop for half an hour, for an hour, say whatever you like, non-stop. They never get dizzy because they are meditating. They don't see anybody around them. They are just meditating. They are flying with God. So they're flying in the sky, and this is kind of a Sufi or a Shia way of practicing, which is again not Sunni like majority of the Egyptians, but you find it still in Egypt because it goes back to the roots of Islam about 1,000 years ago. So that's another picture of the tanura before he takes off the first skirt, and still at the beginning of the dance. It's magnificent, and actually we use it for telling stories. Sometimes they are acting to tell you a story while they are dancing, and mainly it's the story of life and death. So it tells you about the birth of a child, and then going around like, suffering during your life and so on, and the rebirth. So it's really something very special about it. In some of the tombs in Luxor, we found pictures and scenes telling us about the daily life. So this scene in particular of some of the ladies sitting on the floor, and they have their hands, they grab the clay or the sand and the mud, and they cover their hair and face. Why are they doing so? Because you can see their tears as well. Because they are mourners. They lost someone dear in their family. So this is the way to express their sadness, and they were grieving. And they were sitting outside the house or sitting outside the tomb, or some of them sitting outside the house and some of them sitting outside the tomb. When Islam was introduced, that was completely forbidden. Completely. You are allowed to be sad. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to show your sadness in a way or another, but you have to put in consideration that this is the will of God. Your time is up. You can be sad, but you don't have to exaggerate this. And Prophet Muhammad of Islam gave us a very good example. He lost 3 of his sons. So After the death of one of his sons, it happened that was an eclipse of the sun. So his followers said, the sun is angry or the sun is sad for your great loss. He said, no, this is the will of God. I could be sad, I can cry him, yes, but nothing like sunrise or sunset or moon or whatever like this will interfere, because this is the will of God. He was teaching us not to put an eye on any miracles, because it's all about mental belief. So it is completely forbidden to torn your dress, or to shave your hair, or to do any sort of exaggeration to show yourselves. You can be sad, yes, but you have to respect the will of God. And by the way, when we look at most of women in Egypt, we find them wearing black dresses. Like here. I will get back to this one, but the most common color for the ladies' dresses is black. And people are confused because they see ladies in Saudi Arabia, they wear black as well, so you think that maybe this is because of Islam. No, matter of fact, the color of the dress in Egypt is very different because Egypt is different. I wouldn't say better or worse, but Egypt is different from the rest of the world, the rest of the Arab countries, the rest of the Islamic world, and the significance of the black dress has nothing to do with religion. It goes back to the time of ancient Egypt. The ladies used to wear, when they lose someone in their family, they wear white dresses, as you can see, almost transparent, and they also half naked. Yeah, they are like tops. This is from one of the tombs in Luxor, called Ramosa, one of the most beautiful tombs actually in Luxor. So that was the common color. They wear that dress, the ladies wear that dress for 40 days. 40 days. Why 40 days? Because when someone is dead, they used to have mummification, and the mummification lasts for 72 days. So the first stage of mummification is to make the body dry, so it takes 40 days. So they wear that dress for the 40 days, the first stage of mummification. And then after that they can carry on wearing it if they want, or they give it up, yeah, and they wear something else. When the Greeks came to Egypt, 300 BC, they said, okay, that's good. We keep wearing that dress for 40 days, no problem, we follow the Egyptians, but we don't find the white color is good for funeral and mourners and so on. So they changed the color from white to black. So since the time of the Greeks, when someone is dead in the family or in the village, the females wear black for at least 40 days. Now because we are, practicing sort of strong family ties, so we find that if someone lost someone dear in the family and even in the village, so they wear black for even longer than 40 days. So it tends to be like sort of traditional that the ladies wear black for most of the time, because definitely will be someone dead in the village today or tomorrow, you know what I mean? So it's not just the family, it's becoming the whole society, yeah? So as if you are sharing the grief and the sadness of your friend or your neighbor, you know what I mean? So it's not just your own family, it's the whole village sharing this thing. So you find here funeral, you can see that the sad ladies here, and they are doing very much like the ladies in ancient Egypt, which is against religion, but matter of fact they don't know this. They don't know that they are making a big mistake doing that, and the mistake is not only back on them, it's also on the deceased. So they are harming him, they are hurting him by doing so. So it is strictly forbidden to do any of this sort of exaggerated acts during the funeral, because it's must be like sort of a respect to the God and to the will of God. That might be a funny session. It's circumcision. And maybe you know this, that in Islam we have circumcision, and also in Judaism. But actually it goes back to much earlier time before Moses and before Islam. So this is one of the themes of circumcisions for men in ancient Egypt. You can see like a graph of it. And it kept on and on by the time of Judaism, and then was also carried on by the time of Islam. So until now we have circumcision for men, not for women, for men. Some of the people in the villages, they have circumcision for women, and the government is fighting this severely, because it causes lots of problems. I would say that the modern generations, they don't do it. I would say starting from the generation of my mother, in the cities they stopped doing it. But in the villages they kept doing it, and it causes lots of damage to the female and also to the marriage later on in the future. So now they are learning. The education is helping a lot to understand this. But for male, it's like a must, and they do it. And also the Christians in Egypt, the Copts, they have circumcision for men. So again, it has nothing to do with religion, it's mainly traditions. So that's long time before Islam or Christianity or Judaism. We're back to Shem el-Nessim. This is what I told you about fresh air. It's really funny because the way we celebrate that Shem el-Nessim, which is usually in April, it's very much like in ancient Egypt. They used to have eggs and used to have fish, and actually they eat the fish that day in a very special way. One of the ways for preserving fish to be stored for a long time in such a hot country is by putting it in huge amount of salt. So it's a salty fish. Maybe you can call it, because it smells really bad, like a rotten fish. This one here. And we get serious problems now with people eating it in that day, because sometimes it's not very hygienic, and sometimes the body cannot actually absorb this. We are not equipped for it. They used to be, yes, thousands of years ago, but we were not, so it's not really healthy. And it's really delicious and attractive. So the minute you start eating it, you never stop eating it. so it's really good thing to eat. But it's very good because it gives like the feeling of the spirit of the festival. They paint on eggs, and maybe you think that this is something new, but actually it goes back to ancient Egypt. So even the colored eggs is back to ancient Egypt. Well, these guys have done everything. They've introduced everything to us. So painting the eggs, we carried on doing the same thing, and we do the same thing going out to the gardens, every single one. If you go now to Egypt, during that day, you can't believe it. If it happens that you are in Cairo or in Luxor or any of the cities along the River Nile, you cannot imagine the amount of people in the gardens and along the Nile and on boats and rowing down the Nile, or sailboats, feluccas, or whatever, and lots of dancing shows, and it's amazing. So here is a picture also showing this festival, which is again the celebration of harvest, which means lots of wealth to them. That will be our last slide, because I'm not going to talk about this particular issue, because it might take us until tomorrow when we talk about the Exodus. This is a very strange figure of someone holding a rope which looks like a snake. Can you see it? Okay. The story of the Exodus and Moses and the Pharaoh. when they had sort of a challenge. That challenge day was Sham Nisim. That's Carnival Day, when everybody was gathered from everywhere. So the Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, wanted to show off, in front of everyone, in front of that big crowd, and he was quite sure that his priests or the magicians would defeat Moses. So the story about that challenge, that Moses had his stick, that magic stick, and he met the Pharaoh with the priests, and they turned the sticks to snakes. So here we can see that is something very similar. The stick of Moses' stick, or Moses' cane, turned to be a reed snake. So ate the other ropes and sticks. So there, and only then, the priests realized that he is the messenger of God, and they followed him, although they were threatened by the Pharaoh to be killed and to be crucified and so on. But they said, no, this is the right way, we are going with him. We're not talking about the Exodus because that's a big issue, a big session, but I just chose this because it is related to Sham Nisim, and it tells us a little bit about the time of Moses in Egypt, and to show that it was sort of a tradition to meet on that day and to have the festival all over Egypt. Well, I just meant to give you an idea about the festivals we have in Egypt today and how it's related to ancient Egypt. So I hope that you've enjoyed my little talk today, and if you have any question, I'm really glad to take any of your questions and discuss it together. Yes. Oh yes, female do the dancing as well, yes. That's correct. That's why Sham Nisim doesn't come the same day every year. It changed from a year to another because of Easter. Exactly. It's always the following Monday after Easter Sunday. No matter when is Easter, doesn't matter. So Easter is almost 1 week different every year, I think. Please. Sure.
The mission of women in crowds or church or home, is it the same?
Men and women are equal, exactly the same in Egypt. They enjoy equal rights. Maybe in Egypt you find that women are better treated than men, and they have maybe more rights than men. Because in the Eastern society, we look at women as something precious. Women, according to the saying of Prophet Muhammad, they are the mothers, the wives, the sisters, and the daughters, which means that they are more than half of the society. Another saying that someone came and asked him, who should I be good to? He said, your mother, and then your mother, and then your mother, and then your father. So he mentioned the mother 3 times. So it's very important to treat women nicely. And he said that women are very fragile, very fragile, and you have to treat them nicely because you can easily break them. So this is the heart of religion Islam. But because we are in an Eastern society and the man is like responsible of the family and so on, so the woman gets lots of benefits because of that. Now women are doing the same jobs as men. They are required to pay the same amount of tax. According to the law, they go both to education at the same age. Maybe they have more privileges because as men, when we finish our education, we have to do national service. We have to serve the army for a period between 1 and 3 years. Women don't do that, which I find is unfair because, let's say I went to college with one of my female colleagues, and we finished both at the same year, and then I went to serve the army for 3 years while she's acting, having a job. So by the time I finish serving the country, then she is working for 3 years, making money and building career and so on. So it's very unfair. Yeah, if I'm serving the country somehow, so I should be rewarded in a way or another. When we talk about divorce, I'm just getting some bits and pieces to give you an example. Divorce in Egypt, or divorce in Islam. Who has the right to divorce the other one? Both of them. The woman has the right to divorce the man for no reason, even if she can come and say, I cannot stand this man anymore. No reason. More than this, I cannot just wake up next to this man every morning. Then she will be divorced. If they are divorced and they have children, so she keeps the children until the age of 18. Okay? And then they are given the choice either to go to the father or to stay with the mother. Age of 18 they are grown. Anyway. Yeah? And the father is responsible for their expenses and for her expenses as well until she gets married. If she doesn't get married, then it's his responsibility. Okay, she keeps the house or the apartment or whatever and keeps the children and gets the money as well. So the husband has to think 10 times before thinking about divorce. So this is just an idea about voting, election, everything is exactly the same. Nancy, you had a question? That's a good question. The question is about Amun-Ra and the ram heads. We have to understand that when we talk about this in particular, when we talk about religion in ancient Egypt, but as you are asking now, in ancient Egypt they had great respect to all animals and birds and insects and so on. And they wanted, at the beginning of creation, they wanted to make their gods look different from humans. So they had the human body and they had different heads. The idea started when they had the totems and the masks of different animals, like in Africa when the priests were wearing different masks of animals or birds, whatever, and coming to the religious festivals. So the same thing was used in ancient Egypt, and it is like to make them different. So when you look at the figure, you know that he was not a human and he was not an animal. Yeah, so he is something superior, something gathering both a human and animal in the same form. So in each part of Egypt was a famous animal. Like in Komombo is the crocodile, so you have the crocodile head. In the Delta you have the cat, so the cat-headed goddess Bastet. In the Ndera the cow, so you have the cow-headed goddess Hathor and so on. So in this area was the ram, very famous in this area, so it was used as the figure of Amun-Ra. Right. So I guess that, yeah, please. Please. Yes. Based on humans? Of course. At the very beginning of creation, they had the legend of Isis and Osiris, Set and Nephthys. Those were 4 humans. And they were the sons and daughters of the gods. So they were the very first humans on earth. Yeah? Which is very similar to the story of Adam and Eve and their 4 children. It's funny when you go into the mythology and you find that nothing is new. Yeah? So, and one killed the other one. Yeah? So very much like Cain and Abel. So it's exactly the same thing. So these are humans. If you talk about something like this, yes, they are humans. Yes. Coptic, yeah, to Arabic. Okay, first of all, the language, the ancient Egyptian language, started about 3000 BC, and then it was developed generation after generation. It took about 1000 years to be well developed. So from 3000 BC until 2000 BC, it was okay. But 2000 BC, the language was very well developed and established. Yeah? And from that period of time, we have the most famous ancient Egyptian literature. Okay. Then 500 years later, Egypt was conquered. And the Egyptians were trying to keep their secrets. The conquerors didn't care about the language. So the Egyptians were safe because they kept their secrets, and this is how they can fight them back. Right. It was on and off like this. Independence, and then being conquered and so on, until the Greeks arrived. When the Greeks arrived, they were eager to learn the language. Yeah? Because they wanted to learn about ancient Egypt and so on. So the Egyptians felt really worried about their traditional language and history and treasures and so on. So they were trying to confuse the Greeks by adding secret codes to the language. Because they put the codes so they know it. When they find in a text, they know. Yeah? So exclude this one. It's not a letter or something. The Greeks from their side, was very difficult for them to pronounce many of the words. So they tried to make the words sound Greek by adding letters to the words as well. So we started with 26 letters, which is the original alphabet. By the time of the Greek, like 200 or 100 BC, it was more than 2,000 letters. So it became very difficult and corrupt. Then the Greek language was introduced. It was used partly, especially among the elite. The Roman language was introduced, so it was used later on by the time of the Roman occupation. And the ancient Egyptian language itself, after that corruption, moved to be, or changed to be, Coptic language. So the Coptic language was a very difficult language. But by the time they were using it, it was very difficult. And even like Latin, until very recently, if you go to a church, they have the service in Latin, yeah, in Europe or even here in the States. But people start to enjoy their religion and enjoy going to the church, whatever, when they start having the service in English or in German or in French or whatever, yeah. The same thing happened in Egypt. The Copts, the early Christians, most of them maybe couldn't follow the rituals because it was in a very difficult language. So when Arabic was introduced, and it took like 4 centuries to be the main language, the Copts were very happy because they can at least understand their religion. So it's not only the Muslims but also so gradually it happened. We talk about like 5,000 years of development of the language. It's not overnight or over centuries. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your coming and attention. Thank you very much. Yeah. If you would like to have more information in the future, you can check my website. You have my business card on the desk outside, and of course you're most welcome to check my website. When I get back home in like a week time from now, I'll be updating the website with lots of things. So and my email as well. So if you'd like to contact me at any time, ask about anything, of course you're most welcome.
Well,